How you doing, Donna?
Hi, how are you?
Fine.
I love your hair, Donna.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, something quick and easy. I tell you now.
All right. Yeah, I got it. Okay, are we live yet, Sue?
We are live and we have 6 to get started. Bobby said she'd be joining.
Okay. Then I'd like to call to order the public school retirement system of the city of St. Louis Board of Trustees meeting for June 26, 2023 at 4, what is it? 4:35?
4:35.
4:35.
Second.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote. I mean, a roll call, I'm sorry.
Angela Banks. Christina Bennett.
Present.
Louis Cross.
Present.
Sheila Goodwin.
Present.
Shanice Johnson.
Present.
Donna Jones.
Present.
Yvette Levy.
Here.
Martell Mann. Bobby Richardson.
Here.
Albert Sanders. Doris Walker.
Here.
So we have 8, so we do have enough for a quorum.
Okie doke. All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which is the tab 1. That meeting would be on, would have been on, that was a regular meeting on April the 17th, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Sheila Goodwin makes a motion that we approve the minutes of the meetings of April 17th, 2023.
Richardson second.
Okay. All right. Reading of communications.
Mr. Chairman, did we want to just do a voice on that one?
A voice vote?
Vote,
Okay. All right. We'll do a voice vote.
So if everybody is in favor.
Oh, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, so now we have, let's see, reading of communications to the Board of Trustees. Are there any, Ms. Executive Director?
Yes, I do have one letter to read, so I'll go ahead and do that. It's addressed Dear Board of Trustees of PSRS STL. I have been following my retirement investment with PSRS STL since 2001. I retired in 2005. I was in the first group who participated in the drop program, and I continued in this program for the full length and received a sizable amount in my investment. US Bancorp was the custodian. I have never had to wonder about losing my defined benefit through PSRS STL, and one of the reasons was the custodian we currently have. We survived 2008 crash under US Bancorp, our present custodian. I do not have time to gamble with my defined benefit retirement. I do not want my money used to hire employees and grow Exponent's business, or to give away the duties of the executive director of PSRS STL job, in which she has been hired to do and has a staff to help watch our funds. These were the reasons Exponents gave for being our custodian. Exponents does not have any of their key financial data on the website. However, I was able to find US Bancorp financial data on the website. As a matter of fact, I was able to pull 26 pages of financial records. I suggest the trustees do their fiduciary duty by continuing making sound judgments for the custodian of my fund. Exponents is not the one. Please have our lawyer, money managers, executive director, actuary, and you check the website. Do not hire Exponence as our custodian. And this is from Irma Neville's, retired 2005.
Okay. Are there any other correspondence?
No other correspondence. I would just say on this matter, Exponence is not being considered as a custodian. They are one of our fund managers, and so they're going to continue in that role. They are not going to serve as custodian.
Okay. That's an excellent point, Sue. Let's see.
Louis,
Are
can
there
you
any other?
add-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you add to that comment that Exponent is a manager? They are not, they do not have the capabilities to be a custodian. And they are not, so therefore, the concerns are well taken, but they do not have any merit, since Exponents is a manager of the fund, not doesn't have the capabilities to be a custodian. It is not in their wheelhouse.
Right.
And the conversation we had last month was probably a little confusing, given custodial discussions and Exponents in one conversation, but that was more of an internal administrative function that they were seeking approval, not to be our custodian as a fund in its totality.
Well, at this point, I would like to respond to that concern and let Ms. Nevels know that Exponence does not at any point in time fall under the category that she mentioned in her correspondence.
So who can send the letter to her, you or Sue?
I can send a response out to Ms. Nevels.
Okay, I would think Sue would do it. And we basically would do the corrections on exactly what Exponence does and their manager, and that's all they are. And not in any way would they be handling the entire process. Okay. Any other questions about that?
Yes, I have a question. The letter that Ms. Nevels McNeil wrote, where would she get the impression that they were going to be our custodian? I didn't get that impression.
No. So Doris, if you remember at our last investment meeting, we brought Exponents in and we discussed that for their efficiencies and operations, they were going to combine some accounts at the custodian level for their internal portfolios. So,
Yes, I heard all that 2
Mhm.
weeks ago. I could comprehend that. I'm just trying to figure out, why would anyone come up on the impression that we were going to make them our whole custodial? I don't get that.
I think
Well,
it's knowledge base. We were having a very specific discussion, and somebody may have interpreted that a little bit differently, is what I just assumed.
Interesting.
I think that the letter that will clarify everything that, and Sue, if you can just copy us on that, and I think we'll just take point by point and explain exactly the status of Exponence, and then I think that should cover the whole territory on that. Are there any concerns about that correspondence? Okay, then I'll be moving on to communications. Let's see. I'm sorry, presentation by interested parties. Sue, do we have anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay, consent agenda, approval of retirements and benefits for May and June of 2023. Is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion for the approval of the retirements and benefits, May and June 2023.
Is there a second?
I
Goodwin,
second.
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, approval of refunds and bills for April and May of 2023.
I also would like to make a motion for the approval of refunds and bills, April and May 2023.
Is there a
And I
second?
second.
Okay, all
Whoa,
in favor?
Albert, what's in your mouth?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Sue, do we have any unfinished business?
I don't have anything.
Okay, a report of the chairperson. I'm basically reporting that we haven't had a meeting in quite a bit of time, but we did continue with our investment meetings, and we have come to some conclusions which are presented in the packet. And for the trustees review, if you have any questions about those, you can certainly discuss those with Chairperson Bennett or Chairperson Albert Sanders. I think at this point in time, and I'll ask for whatever is necessary through Matt, I want to put an article each month from the chairperson in the newsletter. And just it would be something where it'd be a question and answer, and any questions that they might have, and also any pending information or news, legislative news, or anything from any of the committees would be also appear in that. And so this is something that I'll talk with the trustees about and see if the process in order to get that done. And I just like to, it wouldn't be long, but it would be something where the members could always ask the question, and then I would respond to that question. Because a lot of times as I travel throughout the city, I see retirees and they ask these questions, and sometimes if I can get it out. And I guess the main one is about the COLA, and we've explained that until we are fully funded, then we can't do a COLA, but just some things like that every month. And so that's kind of what I like to do. We also are headed into our conference season. So I would ask all of the trustees, if in fact you plan on attending any of the conferences, that you consult with Sue or whatever is necessary so you can get your information in. And I do plan to attend the conferences as well. And at this point, that concludes my chairperson report. Are there any questions?
Yes, Louis, I want to say our newsletter don't go out every month, do it? You say every month.
I meant every month that the newsletter goes out, Bobby.
It's quarterly, I think. Is it
quarterly, Sue?
Yeah, it's quarterly. Like we have just finished the June one.
Yeah.
It's in the process of being mailed out. So the next one would be September.
Yeah, so that would, that's what I like to do, and just have something out there that addresses all the concerns that might be out there and anything that comes up new. And it would be brief, but just that's something that I'd like to do. So let's see, that being said, report of executive director would be Sue.
Yep. All right, so I have a few things, but I'm going to start with our fiduciary insurance that is up for renewal. The policy expires in July. So we have Allison here from Gallagher, and I think, is Steve trying to call in, Allison?
Yeah, I think Steve's in the waiting room.
Okay, I didn't recognize the number, so I wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
So let me let him in, but so we appreciate Allison and Steve. Steve's been on the account for some time to talk about the renewal. I did share some information with the trustees. So I don't know, Allison, if you kind of want to take it away, and I'll just put this memo up that I had sent out to everyone.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you guys again for letting Steve and I be here to talk through this. think if you remember back to this time last year, we were starting to see a lot of changes in the fiduciary market, and we had been with Travelers for a long time for this coverage, and Travelers kind of cut back some capacity. So we ended up having to go with a 2-carrier system to kind of fill out that tower to get the same limits that we had. We're still seeing a little bit of market toughness here, but it is more optimistic than we were last year. And we think that we're going to see some good results moving forward. I'll let Steve kind of get into the details here, but if you have any questions, feel free to let us know as we go through it.
Thanks, Allison. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I had to call in. I had audio problems on the Zoom. The change in prices. The change in price is being driven more by the rates being adjusted by the carriers than our risk factors. The market, as Allison stated, is still firm, and unfortunately this year it's going to stay firm for fiduciary liability due to the claims the carriers are having. And with such, we had a slight rate adjustment on the primary, which then floated up into the excess layer. We did go out to market. We did try to seek competitive options to see if there was a more competitively priced primary, but also excess program. And in our report, we highlighted that we found that most of the carriers wanted a higher rate than what our incumbents were. So even though we have an increase, it would have been more if we had moved coverage to another carrier or group of carriers to give our capacity. Other than the price change, terms and conditions are the same. There's no retention. Same broad coverage to protect each of you for your duties on the board as trustees, but also for the administrators of the plan to the plan participants. What's driving it is the rates are more, the carriers are just having poor claim experience, and that's being driven by a type of claim called an excessive fee type claim. And we offered details relative to that last year. It's the same issue. Unfortunately, the carriers are still struggling trying to ensure that they pay their claims but stay profitable. And with that, they do rate changes. And that's what Travelers did with the state of Missouri. They filed new rate structure for the capacity, and we're feeling that a little bit this year in the premium. But other than that, again, other than a premium cost, Allison and I are proud to say that the terms and conditions, the capacity, all the other terms and conditions are relative to the same. We are seeing the market change, and I'm hoping by this time next year we're able to show more of a flat renewal, if not a reduction in price, as more competition is coming back into the marketplace on the insurance side, which will hopefully drive down cost. We respect there's a budget, and I think even last year we kind of hinted that this adjustment might go on for a year or two, just because again of the claim activity. Any questions, Sue or the board? If not,
questions or Gallagher on this renewal?
Again, we appreciate the partnership, and if any questions do come up, please let Allison and I know. Thank you for your time. We know you have a lot of things on the agenda.
Yep, we appreciate all the work that you do for us, Allison and Steve. So it looks like it's about a 10% increase from last year's premium. And so we have the 2 layers of coverage. Again, we have the initial $5 million with Travelers, and then the excess coverage then would be with Markle. Again, just like it is last year, just an increase in premium. So if there's no other questions, then we do need a motion. So let me get that up. So I do have a motion up there for the fiduciary renewal.
Sheila Goodwin, to accept the I make a motion to accept the renewal from Travelers Insurance and Markel for the fiduciary policy as recommended by Gallagher, the system's business insurance consultant.
Richardson, second.
Mr. Chairman, was there any discussion or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sue. Is there any discussion on this matter about the insurances, the fiduciary insurance policies with Travelers and Markel? Okay, then it's been properly moved and seconded. So can we take a roll call vote?
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lewis Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Denise Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
Yes.
All right, so we do have 9. The motion carries. So thank you.
Okay.
And I think, again, Steve and Allison, thank you for your help with this information.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Take care. Bye now.
So just a few other things that I wanted to talk about going along with Chairman Cross talking about the conferences that are coming up. We've got everybody registered that has let us know. So we've got NAPERS coming up July 12th to the 14th. We have 4 trustees that are planning to attend, and then Terry from the system is also attending. We also then have, after that, we have NCTR trustee workshop, July 16th through the 19th. Also have 4 trustees scheduled to attend that. And then the NASP in July 24th, 26th, there are 5 trustees scheduled to attend. So again, we've submitted the registration. Oh, and then we also have NPPFA conference. That's August 28th to the 30th, and there are 2 trustees attending that as well. So those registrations have been submitted. I would just remind the trustees that, to book hotels and things like that, sometimes those discounted rooms, there's a deadline, so that you might want to take a look at that and make sure you get your room reserved as soon as possible, along with making your travel reservations. But just let me know if you have any questions or need anything on that, but we've got all the registrations taken care of.
Okay. All right, Sue, thank you.
Yep. And then I also wanted to mention that we do have a new booklet that we put together that we added to the packet. Now, we didn't do the printed version. We put it in the electronic version because that's the version we have right now. It's a new retiree guide or a new retiree packet. One of the things that Chairman Cross wanted to do was kind of make sure there was enough information that members had when they went to retire to understand about their benefit. So we put together a whole packet. Previously, it was kind of multiple documents, but we've created a guidebook. It has information about your benefit. I think we've made a few changes to the retirement application to kind of hopefully highlight the difference between what is a annuitant option beneficiary and a regular beneficiary and what that means, and hopefully just try to make everything fit together a little bit more nicely. So again, it was sent out in the electronic version. If you review that and you have any questions or comments, please let us know. And then on the staff update, as last time we met, we were kind of on the verge of looking at our insurance benefits specialist position and what to do about that. So we have promoted Monica Brewer. She has been in the office since 2019 and was the person that most people would speak to when they would call into the office. But Monica, learned a lot about insurance while Dawn was here and assisted Dawn. So she's stepped right into that role. She was able to spend some time with Dawn before she retired. So she's definitely getting in and getting stuff done. So we're excited to have Monica on board in that role. And then so that left an opening in the receptionist position, clerical services assistant. And we do have somebody that we've slated to hire starting on July 3rd. So hopefully soon we'll be back up to fully staffed. And that new person is on board. I'll send out an email and let everybody know who she is and a little bit about her background. So any questions about that? All right. That was all that I had. That's all
Okay.
in my report.
All right. Thank you, Sue. Report of the investment consultant, which is ANCO.
Yeah, there is no report.
Okay. Report of the actuary, 2023 valuation report.
Yep, we do have the Buck. We have Matt Stavack and Mike Ribble here today to go through the valuation report. And Mike and Matt, do you want to share your screen, or you want me to do it?
I can share if you give me control ability.
All right, you should have the ability. So we appreciate Mike and Matt from Buck being here today to walk us through. We had a training last month and they explained a lot of the concepts to the trustees and myself, but now we're going to get into our actual results for as of January 1st of this year. So I will let Mike and Matt take it away.
Thank you, Stu. I assume everyone can see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, as Sue mentioned, we're here to talk about the annual valuation. This was January 1st, 2023 snapshot valuation. A lot of slides in here we won't spend a lot of time on, but we might pause on them just to kind of remind you, okay, this is where we talked about in the training. We're about to give the actual results, kind of put it into practice type thing. But we do these valuations every year, a snapshot as of January 1st, 2023, and we collect census data on that date, which is all the membership data that Matt will review for the actives and retirees and such. We collect assets as of just the end of the 2022. We'll talk about the market value and how the market was down this year a lot. But this is the first year we're putting in the smoothing technique that we did the board approved in the last experience study. We reset it December 31st, 2021 to market value, but we'll talk about how we smoothed the loss for 2022. So it's going to help out this year, but we'll have some things to deal with over the next 4 years because it's a 5-year smoothing of the asset losses. Actuarial assumptions and methods were basically the same. We didn't have any changes. We like to review those every 5 years unless there's something that comes up or something that the board approves that causes us to change. And there was one thing that affected the assumptions and the plan provisions. The board approved a change in the interest crediting rate for member contributions that haven't been withdrawn, and that rate was dropped from 5% down to 2%. So we've reflected that in the provisions and the assumptions. And then Matt's going to walk us through a little bit of the changes we made to update our methods and assumptions around a contingency reserve that we hold for the assets to pay for retired medical, dental, and life insurance benefits. So we had a little bit of tweaking, but nothing major since, we did these experience studies every 5 years or so. So I'm going to pass it to Matt to talk through the these inputs around the valuation, and then we'll circle back to the middle part, which is the results of the valuation and the actual determined contributions and funded ratios and other key results.
Okay, before you do this, this is Doris. Can
Hi.
you actually turn your volume up some more?
Oh, you're not hearing me very well?
No, I don't. I don't know about the rest.
No, we don't hear, I don't hear you very well.
All right. I'll try. I may call in or something I'll try while Matt's talking. Hopefully you can hear Matt. Matt?
Can you guys hear me okay?
You need to turn yours up a little bit, Matt.
All right.
Susan,
that
is there
better?
any way you can
Yeah,
turn the
that's
volume
better.
up?
That's better.
Yeah, I can't do that. I would just suggest that, your devices, maybe you could check the volume on your devices as well. And maybe Matt and Mike can just speak a little louder.
All right.
All right. So as Mike mentioned, one of the key components that go into the valuation is the data. So here's a breakdown of the population. So you have three main categories in the valuation. You have actives, terminated records, and people that are in pay status. Under the total actives, you can see here there's a breakdown of the school district, charter schools, and retirement system, a change from 2022 to 2023. One thing to highlight here, there was a pretty significant increase in total actives for PSRS of 346. This was higher than expected and what we typically see year over year. And we'll get into a little bit more details of how the increase in total actives affected the valuation results. Next, we have the termination records. So there's two different ones here. You have a deferred vested, and these are participants who used to be active in the population, but they terminated but decided not to receive their benefit yet. So we saw an increase in the deferred vested population of 62 participants. And then we have this non-vested with balance group. These are participants who were active, terminated, but did not meet the vesting service requirements. So they're just due a refund of contributions. And we end up seeing a pretty large increase of 250 members there. As Mike mentioned, the board did implement the interest crediting rates plan provisions to go from 5% to 2%. Hopefully that incentivized some people to take their money sooner rather than later, just because they're not going to be accruing more than 2% each year. And then lastly, you have your total and paid status. You have retirees, beneficiaries, and disabled. No significant really change there. It stayed relatively flat. So jumping to slide 4, after we look at the population as a whole and where everyone's at, we look at the demographic information. So active participants here, you can see there's a breakdown of Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 represents the participants who were hired prior to January 1st, 2018. They receive a different multiplier than Tier 2 participants. Whenever you go calculate their benefit, they receive a 2% multiplier. In addition to that, they contribute at a different contribution rate. Whenever the Tier 2 group was implemented, they were at 5.5%, and each year they increased their contribution rate by 0.5%. Currently, they're at 8% contribution until they get to 9% 2 years down the road. Tier 2 is anyone that's hired after January 1st, 2018, and they have a 1.75% multiplier whenever you calculate their benefit, and they've been contributing at 9% this entire time. One thing to highlight here in the total counts, looking at 2022 to 2023, 2022 had more Tier 1 members, and then going into 2023, it kind of flipped where there's more Tier 2 members as a result now. And we'll see the effects of that on the total employer contribution, how more contributions are now coming in because there's more people in that Tier 2 group. As I mentioned in the last slide, we did see higher than expected new entrants. As a result of that, typically new entrants are much younger, driving down the age, and especially with new entrants, they obviously don't have any service. So your average service is also decreasing from 2022 to 2023. One thing to highlight here is, so the average covered payroll from 22 to 23, it was at a 2.5% increase overall. Even though there's a lot of active members who did receive a pretty big increase, 7-8%, with the new entrants coming in at a lower compensation for the year, kind of drives down the average covered payroll. When we looked at, when you'll see here shortly, around the total compensation, year over year, the total covered payroll increased by 10%. At the bottom of this page, you can see a breakdown of the vested term and non-vested term members, just their average account balance. Like to track it each year, but there's no big highlights here. Now, looking at slide 5, additional information around demographic information for participants currently receiving. I'm not going to go through each of these numbers, but you can see the year-over-year breakdown of average age and average monthly benefit. One highlight here is that the average age from 22 to 23 for each of the groups did decrease. We saw more deaths than expected over this past year. Now, after we look at the data, we start getting into the assets and liabilities. So very similar slide to what we saw during training. As Mike mentioned, that there will be several slides throughout this presentation that you saw last month. But in order to get to the funding status and employer contributions, we first have to look at the assets and liabilities. Jumping forward to slide 10, first looking at the assets. One more, thanks, Mike. So last year, or I guess a few years ago from the experience study, we implemented a 5-year smoothing mechanism. Last year, we set market value equal to actuarial value. So this is the first year that we're going to smooth in gains or losses. Now, how that works is you look at last year's market value of assets. You can take into account contributions, benefit payments, administrative expenses, and you compare to what we actually saw on a market value basis as of January 2023. Looking at line F, the investment return for the year was $102 million loss. Now, what we expected, which can be seen on line K, that if we would have achieved our 7% return on those contributions, last year's market value of assets, benefit payments, and expenses, we anticipated that the return on assets were going to be $66 million. So the difference between those two is a $169 million loss, or a negative 10% return on assets. It wasn't just your plan. We've seen across the board with plans of 2022. It's just a hard year on the market. When we go to calculate the actual value of assets, Mike briefly mentioned the expense and contingency reserve. This is basically a reserve for insurance, so medical, dental, and vision, the monthly fees that PSRS pays. In addition to that, operating expenses. I'll go into a little bit more detail in the gain loss because we did have some slight modifications to the assumptions, but we look at the market value, we take out the expense and contingency reserve, and then we adjust for the smoothing. Jumping to slide 11. So the $169 million, we're not going to fully recognize it immediately. We're only going to recognize 20% of that. So for 2023 actual value of assets, out of the $169 million, we're only recognizing $33.8 million of that. 135 of that's going to be deferred to later years. And when we get to the valuation results, Mike's going to discuss how that deferrals could come into play in the upcoming years. With only recognizing 20% of that, we end up having a 3.3% return on assets. So a total actuarial value of assets as of January 1st, 2023 of $940 million. Going to slide 12, the reason for using the actual value of assets to limit that volatility from a contribution and funding status position. The orange line represents the expected return on assets. The blue line is on a market value basis, and the pink line is actuarial value. You can see the actuarial value is much closer to the expected return, especially like 22 to 23. They're relatively the same, but fast forward to 23, you can see a huge dip in the market value in comparison to the actuarial value. Like I said, the reason for that is so that 1 year you're not contributing a lot more, and then fast forward, you have a bad return year and you have to contribute even more than you would have to. So it just helps limit the volatility of those contributions. Now, after we look at the assets, we start looking at the liabilities. If you want to jump forward a few slides. When we calculate the liabilities, we look at the present value of future benefits. And these slides are very similar to what we saw in the training. So present value future benefits, we have to account for all possible future benefits in the future, retirement benefits, death benefits, disability, how many years someone may work, what their salary could be, when are they going to start their benefit amount. So that's the present value future benefits. And we have to pay for that somehow. So whether it's your assets, present value of employer contributions or employee contributions, it has to be paid for. Now, looking at a snapshot of the present value future benefits for the plan as of the beginning of the year, we have a $1.4 billion present value of plan benefits. Out of that $1.4 billion, 940 of that is covered by your assets. So the rest of it has to be covered by future contributions. So 152 of that is future employee contributions, and the rest, so 332 million is present value of future employer contributions. Going to the slide 17, I did want to have a quick refresher on a few key phrases. You have normal cost and accrued liability. You'll hear Mike and I both talk about this over the gain loss and the valuation results. So the normal cost is the cost of someone working another year. So say Joe Smith has 10 years of service. What is going to be the cost of the plan for him to work an additional year? For the accrued liability, it's a sum of those previous 10 years normal cost to date. So you'll see both of those terminologies over the next several minutes. Now, once we get through the assets and liabilities, we want to make sure that what we expected versus what has actually happened makes sense. So we go ahead and go through a gain loss process and make sure that we understand the gains and losses. We went through an experience study a few years back. It's best practice to go through an experience study every 5 years or so and looked at all the demographic and economic assumptions. The reason for that is to limit the volatility of those assumptions and so they can best reflect the planned experience. Jumping forward a few slides, Mike, to the assets. One more, please. Thank you. So looking at the gain loss in the assets, we have our actual value of assets as of 2022. We take into account contributions, benefit payments, and expenses, and we have an expected actual value of assets of $955 million. Now, we've talked about this expense and contingency reserve several times already. And under the expense and contingency reserve, the Missouri statutes allows you to set aside some money for medical fees, dental, vision, in addition to that operating fees. So this expense and contingency reserve accounts for administrative fees, PSRS monthly fees for the current retirees who are in the medical, vision, and dental, and anyone that we anticipate to go into the medical plans in the upcoming year. Now, there was some assumption changes from last year to this year. Previously, PSRS did do some contract negotiation for the Medicare Advantage, which dropped the premiums for a large portion of this population. So back in 2022, we anticipated 80% of the retirees receiving elected to be in this in the plans at full premium. Now with the Medical Advantage, we were able to incorporate, Medicare Advantage, we were able to incorporate actual data into calculating this expense and contingency reserve So everyone that was in that plan, we assumed 0% or zero premium for the next 3 years. We worked with the health experts at Buck to come up with a reasonable assumption after those 3 years. So starting in 2026, the premium, the fee for PSRS per month would be $20, and then each year after it increased by $20. After that, up all the way up to $80. As a result of that, the fees are minimal in the upcoming year or in the next several years. So there was a gain on the assets as a result of updating the assumptions to reflect this new contractual agreement around these fees. So as a result of that, there was a gain on assets of $19 million. As a result of that, at the end, very similar, we saw the loss of $33.8 million when I was going through the actual value of assets as well. And then that's a 3.3% gain compared to the 7%. Sorry. Now, jumping to liabilities, we play a very similar game to the assets where we take last year's accrued liability, normal cost, benefit payments, and we adjust it for interest. And we come up with the expected actual liability before changes. Now, there was one minor change in assumption, and that had that was as a result of the plan revision change of the interest crediting rate going from 5% to 2%. As a result of that change, we did see a small $700,000 gain on the liabilities. But overall, we ended up still seeing a loss on the liabilities of $10.7 million. A large driver of that was the expected salary during 2022 being higher than expected, just due to those new entrants that I mentioned earlier, being higher than expected. Now, we did see some more deaths than expected over the past few years, so that did help mitigate the loss to the plan. Now, after we go through the gains, losses, understand the assets and liabilities, we start looking at the valuation results around the funding stats and contributions, and Mike's going to walk you through that.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so as we move on to key results of the valuation, we'll just remind you of two quick terms that we use to kind of measure the status before we look at contribution requirements. That's the unfunded liability, is the liability minus the assets. So that's kind of the pension debt of the plan, how much we owe as kind of debt. And then the funded status is the assets divided by the liability. We call it the funded status or the funded ratio. So this is a snapshot from the report. And Matt talked about this contingency reserve, which we take out of the assets before we collect the market value, and that change in the contract negotiation and some of our assumptions did decrease that significantly from 29 to 12.5 million. So that was a boost to the market value. You can see last year's market value and actuarial value were set the same following the experience study. We reset to 943 million, and we had that minus 11. 10.7% return on market. So it was a bad market year. Market went down to 805, but we boosted the actuarial value up. We only reflected 20% of that loss. So we held it up pretty close to what it was before at 940 million. But we still have 135 million in losses, the difference there that we're going to have to recognize over the next 4 valuations. So there's going to be pressure on this actuarial valuation. Everything else being equal, we're expected to kind of trend downwards towards this market value. So with that in mind, and then the second piece of the equation before we talk about the unfunded ratios is the liabilities. They were pretty steady. Matt talked about gains and losses, but 1.28 billion both years. So what that did was it moves the unfunded liability, was pretty steady, 336 to 343. We had steady liabilities, and because of the asset smoothing, we had steady assets. Same thing on the actuarial value funding ratio, which is the funded ratio of the plan. We had 73.7% last year, and because we smoothed the assets, it's 73.3. If we had if we take the market value of assets, we didn't have the asset smoothing. You know, one might say that the plan is 73.7% funded last year, but only 62.7% this year. So it's going to swing a lot when you look at market value funded ratios. But when we look at this plan and the way it works, you know, we're going to smooth the assets always in good times and in bad. So this is the number we tend to focus on. Before I move to contributions, are there any questions about the funded status of the plan or these results? Excellent. Okay, so contribution requirements. Again, we have to have enough contributions, employer and member contributions, when added to that investment return, which is negative this year, but over the long term, we should be getting in money to help this be an economical way to fund benefits. But those two things always have to balance out in the end. So what is that contribution rate? We have a statutory contribution rate for the plan that's paid every year, but we want to make sure that it's going to be sufficient or see if it's not going to be sufficient. And so the actuary determines contributions as required by the funding methods. We have two key terms: actuarial determined contribution and the employer portion of that. So just a reminder, Matt talked about the normal cost to pay for this year's benefits. I'll talk a little bit about the amortization period payment, which is to pay the pension debt down, how much we have to pay this year. We adjust for interest to get the timing of the payroll right. And that's the total contributions that are required on an actuarial basis. Before we say, well, what do we recommend the employer's portion is, we have to subtract out those member contributions that we expect to receive during the year. So this is an annual amount that we determine each year. To get the 15-year, the amortization amount, just a reminder that it's based on how much is the unfunded liability, unfunded actuarial accrued liability, that the liabilities of the plan minus that smoothed actuarial value. So we need to fund that, and we fund it over 15 years. The next slide, we're going to talk about the layered amortization. When we did the experience study a few years, the board adopted a layered amortization approach, but it's been hard to kind of see in action. I think we talked about it during the training, but this slide is new. It'll help kind of see, it's going to build a table over time. But I kind of think of it as last year we bought the house, and this year we're buying a new car, basically. Last year we had an unfunded liability of $336 million. And we reset that and we amortized the entire unfunded liability. We said, we're going to pay that down over 15 years. It's going to cost $34.5 million per year to do that. And so that 336, we paid a little bit, we paid the 34.5, and we have 323 left at 1/1/23. And we have another payment of 34.5. And so we have 14 years left on that house payment, let's call it. Now we look at this year's valuation, we reviewed with you, we have $343 million of unfunded liability. We had some losses that we're recognizing mostly on the asset side. So that unfunded actually grew a little bit to 343. So we were paying the 323 down with these 14 payments, but that causes us to have to buy a car basically that's worth $20 million. The difference between the 343 and the 323, we have to pay that down. And the why it's called a 15-year layered amortization is we're paying that down over 15 years. So we're going to pay that $2 million over 15 years. And the reason this is important is if you just paid everything off over 14 years and 13 and 10, when you get down to like 5 years left, everything's amortized over 5 years, you get a lot of big spikes and increases and decreases in your payment. So this helps keep it. We're gonna have a new payment each year. Maybe next year will be a good year. We have a gain. I don't know. It's probably not because of the asset losses we're deferring, but eventually, hopefully, this is a mix of gains and losses that are amortized over 15 years. The bottom line is that $34.5 million amortization payment has now increased to $36.6 million this year. I'm going to jump ahead to. So this
Mike,
is that.
Can you go back for a second? on this analysis. So
Uh-huh.
if we have a year like next year, let's say hypothetically next year, we've got a lot of gains that we capture, right?
Mhm.
So then, and our unfunded liability goes down.
Mhm.
We still keep the same amortization?
Yeah, we'll still have this 34.5 million. We'll still have this 2.1 million, but then we'll have a negative January 1st, 2024. Say it's negative 20 million. We'd have a negative 2.1 million payment. So it would go back to 34.5. The problem is over the next 4 years, we have that 135 million loss of assets that we're going to have to, that maybe we'll overcome with asset gains, but it's more likely than not that this is going to be a loss, at least some of the next 4 years, because,
Yeah, we're not gonna get $135 million gain.
yeah, I mean, we
Well, that
might,
would that, but that's still amortized over the next 5 years. So it's not like you take it in 1 year.
correct.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so this is putting the pieces together side by side. That formula I was talking about, the normal cost plus amortization minus the member contributions to get to the actual determined contribution. Normal cost is a little bit up because we had a lot of new hires and a lot of new employers and also pay increases. So it's a little bit up with interest from 22.3 to 24.8 million dollars. The amortization I reviewed with you was 34.5 to 36.6. We do add interest to get it on a payroll basis. For a total contribution before member contributions are subtracted out of 58 up to 62.6. Member contributions were a help because we have a higher payroll and also because tier 1 members are paying 8% this year versus 7.5%. So higher member contributions tracking out. So we have 62 minus the 34 member contributions leaves us an actuarial determined contribution for the year of 38 million compared to 37 million last year. So we increased the dollar amount that we recommend, that we calculate on an actuarial basis. But as a percent of payroll, it's actually a decrease from 14% to 13% because we have that much higher payroll that we're dividing by. So it looks better as a percent of payroll than it does as a dollar amount. The top half of this next slide is the same numbers, the 13.41% and the $38.3 million contribution, but we allocate based on the payrolls, covered payrolls of the board, the retirement system, and the charter schools. More importantly, the statutory annual required contribution that I talked about. Last year was 14%, this year 13.5%, and it goes down every year 0.5% until we get to 9%. So when we compare last year, I think we were at 14.28 or something. And this year, and we were comparing to 14%, we said, well, we're not getting enough. But this year, if you just looked at a snapshot and stopped there, you'd say, oh, well, we're getting 13.5% and we only needed 13.4. That's great news. We're getting more than we need. But again, I would pause that because remember, this 13.5 is trending down to 9% over the next several years, right? This 13.4% is actually going to trend up if everything stays the same with those losses that I talked about, 135 million that we got to bring up. This 13 is trending up towards 18%. All else. Maybe we'll get some gains to help mitigate that, but without that, if we were just to say, well, in 5 years it's going to be 18%, and in 5 years this is going to be trending towards 9%, even close, So it's not. It's good news that we were able to have some gains this year, but it's a little bit misleading if you just looked at this chart. Any questions on contributions? Okay. Yeah, this is just that comparison of this year to last year, side by side. And funded ratio history on an actuarial valuation basis. If we build this out, I think we might want to build this out for 10 years or something or go back, but you'll always see that the actuarial will probably always be a smoother line than the funded ratio on if you were to ride the roller coaster. Most year, I mean, once I get a good year, it's always going to look like bumpy. But we always talk about the investment risk. That seems to be the biggest focus of plans, trying to achieve that 7% return. That's, over time, if we can do it, then we're in good shape. But when in years like last year when we don't, we're going to suffer for the next few years while we smooth that in.
Do you make any recommendations on that amount?
I mean, we look at it every year, and I think unless the board, some boards get anxious and want to look at it sooner than every 5 years, I would recommend it. We would recommend, unless we get out of line, that we would review it every experience study. So when we just did an experience study in 2.5 years ago, so we have one coming up in 2 to 3 years time, and I think we should have reviewed it at that time. However, actually with interest rates as high as they are, we're actually at the lower end of that range. A lot of boards are pushing their investment rates down and down, which is good for conservative principles, but we're actually at the lower end now because rates are high. But I don't think the interest rates are going to be sustainably high for long periods of time. And I think that this is going to be, in the range, and maybe by 3 years when we do the experience study, the board might have an appetite to lower that rate of measurement. But right now I wouldn't have any recommendation to do anything different unless the board had interest in exploring it. Longevity risk is just participants living longer. As Matt mentioned, we actually saw more deaths than expected. That was a gain to the plan. Contribution risk is important here because we want to keep watching those statutory contributions as they lower, and how that's going to put downward pressure, and our funded status might suffer over time over the next 5 years, unless we see a significant market recovery to help us along. Not getting in the contributions that the actuary says, but what's in statute is a big risk to this plan. Okay. And in 2 seconds on this, we're going to work with staff. We may have mentioned this before. We just have a new ASOP that requires us to do some disclosures around what would the liabilities of the plan look if we weren't invested in stocks and bond mix, and we just had it all in low default risk. Then we already put a lot of risk stuff in our report, and we're going to have to add to that due to an ASOP.
Okay, this is Doris again. Mike and Terry, I see your presentation, which is great, but I didn't hear a doggone thing that y'all said, because I don't know whose volume it is, my volume or you all volume. But I did read the presentation. That's all I'm going to say until this volume thing get worked out.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to turn mine up. I don't know if it worked, but I didn't hear anyone say anything. So I had some questions, so I assumed it was decent.
You know what? Remember Barry White? That voice? Really nice voice. So I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's my volume or you all's volume, but the presentation was on point. It was good. And I'm glad that I actually got to see the presentation, because if I had went by y'all voices, I wouldn't heard a thing. Nothing.
All right, thank you. We'll work with Sue to be sure if it's on our end or not. We'll test run it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Are you done, Mike?
Yeah, any other questions?
Okay, then if there are no other questions, then we need a board approval for the report. Are we going to take a roll call vote, Sue?
Yeah, so I'll put up, I was gonna say, when Mike has his screen down, but let me get our motion up here. All right, so it's that number 2 motion.
I make a motion to accept the 2023 actuarial valuation report as presented by the actuary.
Richardson second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. We'll take a roll call vote.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lewis Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Denise Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy, Yvette, are you still there?
Sorry about that. Yes, it's hard to unmute.
Gotcha. Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
No.
Okay, so we do have 8 yes, 1 no. The motion carries.
Okay.
So just want to say thanks to Matt and Mike for all your work in presenting this valuation to us and working with the staff on the process. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, we'll move on to report of committees of the board, which is tab 3. We'll start off with trustee with benefits for trustee Donna Jones and trustee Shanice Johnson. Do you all have a report?
No report today.
I didn't hear you, Louis. What did you ask?
I said we are on the reports of the committees of the board, and we're at the benefits committee. And I asked did Shanice and Donna have a report, and they have no report at this time. Okay, we move on to trustee business, and that will be trustee Goodwin and trustee Banks. You all have a report?
Well, yeah. Excuse me. Well, I know last week our attorney gave a presentation concerning reinforcing or updating to some of the new members on business policy. And one of the things I had asked on a previous meeting with him was about including international travel. It's not a change, but it's an addition to international travel. And I was informed that I have to bring this up at this meeting, this business, not business, but our regular meeting on how to proceed with adding this on to our policy. So now, members, I'm asking about adding and reviewing, well, not add, yeah, adding our international travel and another one of our associated group to be part of us, such as the Capital Work Group. But that's just one that I was talking about as an addition to organizations for the policy, for the retirement board. Did I Any questions about what I'm saying?
Are there any other any
Is
questions?
this
I'm sorry.
concerning the trip that you took to Spain, that you want us to okay that it's gonna be in, I think, Japan or China next year or something like that? This is to Sheila.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Is this concerning the trip that you had took to Spain, and then next year it's supposed to be either in Japan or China or something?
Did you hear that, Sheila? Sheila?
Like she froze.
I was gonna say, maybe we lost Sheila.
Did she drop off?
No, she
Okay.
froze.
Yeah, she just her internet might have dropped.
Okay.
I guess
We can just come back to Sheila if she's lost, and when she comes back on, we can finish that up. We'll move on to investments with Trustee Bennett and Trustee Sanders. Is there a report?
Let me look. I think we do have something we have to bring to the board.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
several motions. I have the first one up.
All right. I was like, I know we had
No,
it.
that's the second and third one up.
Yeah, I'm on tab 3.
Yeah, the first one for the investment committee, it's number 3.
Yep.
Right. Did you want to read that, Chris?
Yes. So I'd like to get a motion from one of our members to approve the liquidation of the Exponents fixed income investment as recommended by the investment consultant ANCO and our investment committee that we discussed. I was just trying to find a date for everyone. It's under tab.
Okay, they're making her.
Okay, is there a second?
Can't hear her.
Okay.
What is she saying?
Okay, hold on a second.
I make a
hold on
motion
a
to
second.
approve the.
Christina, hold on, Al. I want her to re-enter the motion and turn your volume up just a little bit because Doris is having problems hearing. So I want to make sure that she can hear the motion.
Yeah, and Doris, have you tried your volume to see if it might have gotten off?
You're getting ready to make a motion.
Okay, Christine, I'm sorry, not Christine. Susan, I'm gonna come by there and bring this to you because I don't touch it unless it's time for a board meeting. Okay?
Okay, I gotcha.
They're gonna come back to you.
All right. So, Chris, if you can re-enter that motion,
Yes.
and let's see if we can get everybody to hear it this time.
My volume is up on maximum. So I can't make the motion, but what I wanted to do is to just inform everybody under tab 3. We had a meeting on April 20th to discuss this. And that was the recommendation that's coming from committee. So if anybody would like to make that motion that was present for that meeting, I would like to entertain that motion now.
Okay. Is there anyone that can make the motion? Okay, I'd like to make the motion to approve liquidation of the Exponents fixed income investment as recommended by investment consultant ANCO and the PSRSSTL investment committee. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Discussion?
Sheila got something to say. Hold on.
I'm sorry, discussion.
Sheila?
Yeah, what's the, I'm just trying to clarify the difference with Exponent as a custodian. Well, what's the new, we'll eliminate them altogether from the fund, or are they gonna take a new role? I'm just trying to clarify from my notes too, the difference between the custodian and Exponents, as they're not a custodian, what is the role?
Okay, so let me clarify, Sheila, that we had 2 investments with Exponents. We had a fixed income portfolio that we ended up getting from Piedmont, and then Piedmont was sold to Exponents over time. And then we have the global equity portfolio with Exponents. what we decided on the April 20th meeting is that we would terminate exponents over time on the fixed income portfolio. So we would only retain exponents in the global equity space. And neither of those discussions have anything to do with our current custodian, US Bank. So.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Sue, I think we can take the roll call vote.
All right, Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lois Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
No.
So we have 8 yes and 1 no, so the motion carries.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move.
From yeah, we have a couple more from the investment committee. Let me.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Yeah. To the next page here. All right. All right, so motion number 4.
What?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to invest $10 million with Strategic Value Capital Solutions Fund 2, as recommended by investment consultant ANCO and the PSRSSTL Investment Committee. Is there a second?
Richardson, second.
Questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, Sue, we'll take a roll call vote.
Okay, Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lois Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Donna, are you there?
yep, she's on mute. Donna, you're on mute.
I'm trying to unmute.
There
You
you go.
good? You good?
Okay, yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
Yes.
All right, so we have 9, the motion carries.
Okay.
There's
Are we
another-
ready for number 5, Sue?
If everybody is ready, yes, it's there.
Okay. Number 5, investment committee rebalancing. This motion is to approve the rebalancing plan per the proposed target asset allocation as recommended by investment consultant ANCO and the PSRSSTL Investment Committee. Is there a second?
Richardson, second.
Questions or comments? Questions? Any questions? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lois Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yeah.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker,
Yes.
All right, so we have 9, motion carries.
Okay.
Now we have one, I believe it's one more. Apologies, I gotta get it
Roll
off.
that up a little
Yeah, I was
bit.
gonna say I gotta get it up on the screen.
Okay.
Oh, actually, there's 2 more. Investment committee has been busy.
Oh yeah, they've been very busy.
So that's number 6.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dr. Sanders, can you read that motion, please, sir?
I make a motion to approve the applications from Exponent's fixed income liquidation with the full amount invested with current core fixed income manager Manulife as recommended by investment consultant ANCO and Public School Retirement System of St. Louis Investment Committee.
There a second?
Richardson second.
Questions?
Nope, just saying that Albert read number 7 before he read number 6.
Oh, he did 7. I'm sorry. Al, we're on 6. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We can do 7
Yeah.
first.
Okay, well, all right, you want to do 7 and then we'll do 6? Okay, that's fine.
Somebody trying to get up the meeting.
Any questions on that? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote for 7, Sue.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lewis Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
Yes.
Okay, so again, we have 9, the motion carries.
I make a motion for investment committee exponents IMP's account structure. And I make a motion to approve the IMP account structure for Exponus Global Equity as recommended by the investment consultant ANCO and the Public School Retirement System STL Investment Committee.
Is there a second?
Richardson second.
Okay, we have any questions on number 6?
Yes, I wanted to go back and let Sheila know that this is the structure we were talking about, and this is where I think that one of our constituents got confused. So this is what we're doing. We're changing the structure for this one global equity account, and that's where the discussion where it was a custodial account change that they were doing, but not that Exponents is our custodian. So I just wanted to bring this full circle and know that this is what we were discussing regarding a change with Exponents' global equity account with US Bank. And I just wanted to bring that clarity full circle.
Okay, Christine, it was not only Sheila that was not under the understanding of this. It was
Okay.
me.
Oh, okay, sorry
I'm
about
going
that.
to question it, okay?
Okay. Does it
Yeah.
make sense now?
No, I
Okay.
don't, but go ahead on.
Oh, no, that was just where I was trying to bring the full structure, but we can have further discussion if you would like.
Yeah, Chris, could you explain what they did with Exponents and they
Yes.
to save on the fees and so
Right.
forth?
So for
Okay.
example, we're going to just use Christina Bennett has 3 bank accounts at Bank of America, right? And each account is costing me fees for every single account that I do. So what Exponents is saying is, hey, I would like to go from 3 accounts to 2 accounts, and I need your approval at US Bank in order to go to 2 accounts so that I can move money from one account, from one manager to another without having to switch all these different bank accounts and go back to Sue every time I move money from one consultant from one manager to another. Now we gave Exponents a mandate, a while back, but we did not tell them who to invest that money with. So when they inherited the account had 3 accounts set up. And so they are going back and saying, how can we reduce the fees and bring those 3 accounts down to 2 and move money from the accounts back and forth based on our direction of what we need for that global equity mandate. So that's where the permission, and this is why they're changing. It's the structure at the custodial level that they're changing, but it has nothing. It won't impact our fund, our fees. It won't impact the investments that they do. It's just making it easier for them to move assets from one account to another. So they're going from 3 to 2 accounts, and that's what they were asking permission to.
Okay, so they're not trying to eliminate our director, Susan.
Absolutely not. No, this has nothing to do.
That's the issue that I
No.
have. Because when the young lady was talking about relieving a lot of duties that
Yes.
Susan does, I objected right off the bat. Because you have to explain these things to
Correct.
me.
So for example, every time if they wanted to move $100 from one account to the other, they would have to call Sue. Sue would have to approve it, and it would take time. So that's when they were saying it would relieve Sue from having to approve all these small little trades and movements of money. That's when they were saying it will relieve Sue.
Okay, I understand that. But if it relieves her from all the little things is normally when we get in trouble. It's the little things. I don't want anyone trying to overstep our director. There's a reason why she's a director.
Yes.
Excuse me. Doris, what it's done is really an administrative change within their organization, which is making it better for Sue and for them. It's not a matter of how Sue is doing her duties. No, it's not. They're not criticizing that. And most investment companies are moving towards that trend and just making their work easier. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with how Sue is conducting the business.
The only thing I'm doing is looking out after our pension. That's all I'm doing. This is why I ask questions.
Absolutely.
And this is why some of y'all object when I ask questions. You talk to me like I'm little. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. That's it.
Okay, Sue, can you further elaborate on that to make sure that we're clear on that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Christina said and how she described it. You know, there's a lot of approvals that I would have to do for these. The transfer of funds is really what it is within US Bank. And so by them consolidating and going down to a fewer number of accounts, it's really not going to change anything other than I'll have few of those approvals to do. And those are very, you know, because they have the mandate, as Christina pointed out, you know, it's not like something I'm going to object to because they are the ones that are investing those funds. I just have to give that approval to US Bank because they're not going to take it from Exponents. They're going to take it from me. But if there's just one account, then those funds don't have to be moved and shuffled from manager to manager. It'll all be in that one account.
Well, before I voted, I wanted to make sure that you were going to be kept in the loop because I count on you for a lot of things because I call you a lot. Yep. I count on you for a lot of things. And when people start sidestepping things and it's affecting my pension, yeah, I'm going to start watching.
And Doris, you're doing your fiduciary responsibility by asking these questions, and it is always welcome to ask questions and get clarity because this is difficult stuff. This structure for Exponents was different than most of our managers, right? Because when we do a mandate for one account with one manager. This one had 3 accounts, and they inherited this structure when we transferred the mandate. So I appreciate your questions.
And we'll still have all the records. All of that will be reported to US Bank. So we'll still get all the reporting ANCO will see all of that. So it's not, they're not trying to necessarily hide anything. They're just trying to make it a little more streamlined in their process.
Thank you for your answers and setting me really straight on a lot of things, but I just need to make sure that Susan is kept in the loop of everything that goes on concerning this pension. That's all.
Did that pass, or are we still waiting to vote?
We haven't voted yet. That was
Okay.
the discussion.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Any other questions? If not, let's take a roll call vote, Sue.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Lois Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So
Before we go to,
motion
I'm sorry,
carries.
Sue.
That's
I'm sorry,
okay.
Sue.
Okay.
Did we pass?
Yes, there was 9. The motion carried.
Okay. Before we go on to any other committees, Sheila, you're back on. You dropped off. I don't think you finished with what you were presenting. Is that true?
No, okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I was discussing that the attorney informed me that for us to make any addition to the policy of the for business, I have to mention it to you in this meeting. I can't do this in a committee meeting. And if you agree, if the body agree, the trustees agree that they want to talk about this policy, addition policy, then we go to committee. So I wanted to know about international travel and adding another group to our organization. We have this done in a committee meeting. Can we go to committee with this? And this is what I'm asking you. Can we go to committee with this?
Okay. At this point, Sue and Matt, I wanted to defer that to you. It's my understanding that we already have the ability to travel internationally, but it has to be approved prior by the trustees. Is that correct, Matt and Sue?
Correct. Though it doesn't say it has to be approved prior. That's sort of where some of the issue came up recently. It just says it has to be approved on a case-by-case basis, period. And that's where it is. So.
All right.
But
So
Matt, there is a question.
hold on, Chris. So what I'm asking is this, Sheila, do you want to still proceed, or do you just want to interject in that prior area a timeline, and then we can take a look at it and so forth, or do you want and so that's what I'm asking. Go ahead, Chris. You had something else to say.
So from my understanding, this does not get brought up in a meeting because it is it has to go to the Rules and Regulations Committee, and then the committee would entertain
Exactly.
any changes made to any language regarding policy changes. And international travel is not even listed in our policy. It just says travel. So, and we already have quite a few already approved meetings or seminars that can be attended by trustees. And so therefore, that would be something the Rules and Regs meeting would entertain, is adding another one. If you want to be that specific, or adding international travel to the language, but that would go to the Rules and Regulations Committee to be brought up.
That comes under business too, Christina.
It would trustee travel would be after, would follow the Rules and Regs Committee. So you would have to have a meeting from the Rules and Regs, and then if that gets changed, then if you do ask for it, it would be approved for trustee travel. But your rules and regs would take precedence over any trustee travel.
Okay.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Again, what I'm saying is, and I deferred that to Matt and Susan, we already have the ability in the policy, if it's approved, to travel internationally, if it's approved, but there's no prior is not in the wording. So when we defer that to Trustee Levy and Trustee Walker's committee, then we also need to take take a look at the issue of, if we do this, all you might have to add is prior in there, which is not there now, but there is international travel is in the regs now, but it doesn't say prior. Or do you want to just restructure the whole thing, or do you want it at all? But that'll be something that Trustee Levy and Walker and Trustee Goodwin can chat with and decide how you're going to craft it so that we can vote on it, yay or nay.
And I think it's important to mention that you want to add another educational institute provider to our, so it'd be like two different motions, wouldn't it? Because it would be if you want to change the language, but it'd also be if we want to add an additional education provider for in our
Yeah, exactly, Trustee Sanders. That would also be in the crafting of that information that's going to be submitted for our vote and approval. So I would ask at this point that Sheila Goodwin, Trustee Goodwin, you get with Trustee Levy and Walker and get that language and everything set up, and then we can take it from there. Is that okay with you, or you have any other concerns?
No, I don't have any other concern. I'm all right with that. I'll get
Okay.
together with them. So I just want to make sure this doesn't come under the business committee.
No, it's rules and regulations.
So where does travel come in? Which committee?
The travel is when we travel, and all of the bills and everything that go with the travel. It's my understanding. Am I right, Sue and Matt? If I'm not, correct me, please.
Yeah, the trustee business committee, they are the ones that approve the travel expenses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. This is a rule change, right?
Yes, rule change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Matt, just for the record, Matt, the case by case does not specify international or domestic. It just says case by case.
Right. I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Trustee Sanders and Bennett?
We've had enough work for 1 month. Thank you.
Okay, I was getting ready to say you all have monopolized the whole thing, and thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was very important what you all provided, and I'm glad that we were able to get past that. Okay, Trustee Levy and Walker, legislative rules and regulations. You all have a report?
No, we don't, but I did send something to Sue to discuss with the lawyer if we can announce the legislative when it came to education or pension.
He's going to cover that in his report.
Okay.
All right.
Did you all have so you all don't have a report at this time?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. We'll move on to personnel and professional contracts. Trustee Richardson and Trustee Martell Mann. You all have a report?
No report at this time, but I believe Sue gonna get back with us about an upcoming contract, right, Susan?
Just a reminder, the custodian RFPs, those responses are due by this Friday. So we will be looking to schedule some additional meetings in August to talk about selecting finalists, and then kind of some follow-up meetings. So yes, we'll be in touch with the co-chairs and then with the rest of the trustees to get those extra meetings scheduled to go through that RFP process.
Okay. That's my report.
Okay, thank you so much, Trustee Richardson. We have any new business, Sue?
I do not have any.
Okay, so now we come to the report of the General Counsel. Matt, you have a report?
Yes, Chairman, I do have a report. Given the number of items we had to discuss, I recommend we go in closed session for it.
Okay. Trustee Walker, can you read that closing of the meeting, please? Did she hear me? I guess she didn't hear me.
I make a motion to close the meeting and that all records and votes to the extent permitted by law pertaining to and or resulting from the closed meeting be closed under revised standard in Missouri 610.02.021 for the purpose of having a confidential or privileged communication with the legal counsel for public school retirement system of St. Louis on legal matters.
Richardson, second.
Okay, any questions? All right, then we'll take a roll call vote.
Christina Bennett,
Yes.
Louis Cross,
Yes.
Sheila Goodwin,
Yes.
Shanice Johnson,
Yes.
Donna Jones,
Yes.
Yvette Levy,
Yes.
Bobby Richardson,
Yes.
Albert Sanders,
Yes.
Doris Walker.
Yes.
All right, so we have 9, the motion carries. Do just a few. Give me a moment here.
Hey, I forgot. We have written minutes too, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Not for this part, but this part, yes, you would be reflected as abstained. We would post this.
Okay.
You're lucky you had 6 votes. If it was 5, it'd still be in closed session.
That's right.
Hey, I was counting.
That's right.
I was saying, Doris, you better not do it.
All right. That being
make a motion
said,
to end our lovely meeting.
Hold on, Al. Hold on. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn this amazing meeting as usual. Are we recording, Susan?
And Richardson, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Good night, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Everybody.
And enjoy the rest of the summer. See y'all in the Ozarks.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
All right.